Welcome to Tips for the Transition, where we have deep, meaningful conversations about life. We talk about how significant changes like divorce, grief, and career change can affect us, our family, our relationships, and our work, and how to move beyond them. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan, certified career and life coach for women, and I'm here to support you through the messy seasons of life so you can answer big questions like who am I now and how do I move on from here? If you're ready to consider new options, be inspired, and meet incredible women who are on this life journey with us, you're in the right place. You'll find something in each episode to give you hope and encourage you to move from panic to powerful, from rocky to resilient, and from upside down to right side up. This is Tips for the Transition. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. And as a career coach, I help professional women who feel stuck. Together, we position them for the career they really want that will fulfill them and create more harmony in their lives. Because when your career isn't a soulful fit, it becomes a soul-sucking experience. So each week we have meaningful conversations with guests that create resources so you can become more confident, resilient, and brave as you make the moves you want to make in your career and do it with more ease and grace. So if something in this conversation strikes a chord with you, please check out the show description below for all of the links that you'll need to connect with my guest and me. I am so excited for today's episode because my guest and I share a passion for guiding people through career transitions so that they feel inspired to thrive. Robin Merle is a certified fundraising executive for billion-dollar organizations and a veteran of that place at the top where power and value and identity wars can happen. She is the award-winning author of Involuntary Exit, A Woman's Guide to Thriving After Being Fired, my favorite word. Robin has raised more than $500 million in philanthropy, served as a board member for 3 nonprofits, and was named 2017's Woman of Achievement for her leadership in fundraising and her commitment to supporting women in the field. She is the founder of the Professional Guide, a witty, honest resource to help women take action on personal experiences that aren't up to their standards. She's a frequent speaker on leadership, including most recently at Chief, one of the largest national networks of C-suite women, and the 10th Annual Women's Leadership Conference at the Johns Hopkins University. Her credentials alone were enough for me to invite her to join us today. But wait till you meet her. She's a down-to-earth lady, and you're going to love her as much as I do. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Maria. What a lovely introduction. And I also love the way that you introduce your show. I couldn't agree more about the importance of transitions and how to approach them. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. So let's get started. Share, if you would, share your story and why you wrote this book called Involuntary Exit.
I'd be happy to. As you said, and you summarized my career, I have been in the fundraising field for over 35 years, and I am what I refer to in my book as a type A, hard driving loyalist. I stayed at most of my organizations for 10 years, otherwise 5 years, but for long tenures. And I had never been let go from an organization. So when this happened to me, I was stunned and surprised and had no idea what to do, how to talk about it, and how to basically put one foot in front of the other and move forward. So I looked for other books and realized there was no manual for dealing with this kind of loss. And I don't just mean the job loss, but I mean the loss of identity that frequently comes when you lose a position at a company. There are plenty of books that talk about writing resumes, negotiating severances, or articles about rebounding, but I didn't find anything that really delved into how a person feels when this happens, what the emotional roller coaster is like, and how they build resilience and learn really how to choose very carefully and strategically for their own success going forward.
Boy, you hit on some of the things that I remember so well because I had never been laid off before, and it happened to me as well after
Mm,
nearly 20 years with the
mm,
company I was with. And you're right, it comes as a shock. And I don't know about you, but for me, uh, one of the first emotions I felt was panic, not
interesting.
knowing. And you said it, how to talk about it. What there was this
Mm-hmm.
feeling of almost shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those emotions and some of the questions that people who are in a situation like this, going through a transition like this, what are some of the questions that they're asking themselves?
So, Maria, it's interesting your first feelings because what I've applied to the phases of this, let's say, involuntary exit journey, is a grieving framework.
Mm,
So, the first phase is shock and numbness and panic. I would probably fall under that,
yeah.
where you're just numb and you're shocked and you really don't know what to do. Um, the second phase is yearning and searching, and I think we've all had that feeling where, oh, we wish this hadn't happened and we could go back the way things were, and we search for ways to get ourselves back in that comfort zone. The third is kind of a disorientation phase. And one of the women in my book whom I interviewed said, they spend 2 days on orientation at my company. They should also spend 2 days on disorientation when you're let go because you're sort of flailing and asking the questions that I'm about to get to. And the last phase is really reorganization and resolution, and you come to terms, you reorganize your thinking, and you resolve how you want to live your life from that point forward. And this takes time. The initial questions that people might ask themselves, and I had a consulting social worker for my book when this happens, are why is my identity my job? Because
Ooh,
if you've left that job, you've left that identity. And then they start to ask, do I like the roles I've played? Why was I working so hard? And just by asking those questions, they open up a dialogue with themselves to do the important work to change their mindset, which is they step back, they start reflecting, ultimately, they reframe, and at the end of the rainbow, they reset.
ooh, I love those questions. And you hit the nail on the head with the second one. Why was I happy and why did I do that for so long?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that was actually, and it does cause you to go inward and really do some reflection,
Hmm.
a lot of reflection about who you are now, that things have changed, and what do you really want next, which is the work I do with my clients, answering those questions. Oh, good questions. So in your book,
Hmm.
and you mentioned it a moment ago, the mindset, the changing
Hmm.
our mindset. You focus on that in your book, and how we must change our mindset to build resilience and remind ourselves of our value, right? As we move
Exactly.
forward, right? How do you
Exactly.
how do you help us lean into this? What are the kind of the key things we can do to lean into that?
That's a great question, Maria, and it is really where the bulk of the work takes place, as I'm sure you know as a coach. People will come from a transition, whether planned or unplanned, with ideas about themselves and the role they played in, quote, the community of their culture and what their identity is based on who they have been. And it takes a lot of work to start eliminating the undervaluing, especially if you've been transitioned and you haven't planned it, any negative self talk that intrudes. I think we all know that experience when we go to bed at night and suddenly there's a tape that's circling around in our head and a script that we're telling ourselves, and that puts us in a state of mind that isn't really helpful for us moving forward. So, to change your mindset, it has to be a very deliberate exercise that we do. We don't have to do it alone. We can do it with coaches like you, or we can do it with people we collect as sort of advisors or helpers for us. But one of the first things that's important to do if you have an involuntary exit is to sit down and write what actually happened when you left, and not to include your fears, your feelings, what other people said, but write down what actually happened. I walked into the room, this was said to me, I walked out of the room, and then instead of telling yourself a narrative, I should never have taken that job, I never had the skills for that job, you have to start rewriting that narrative. And you can do that mentally, or you can do that on your keyboard, or you can do that into a recorder. You can do it any way that is comfortable for you. But basically, you want to start thinking in terms of, I did a good job where I was. That job has ended, whether for good or for not. I succeeded in reaching several goals in that job. And now I'm going to move on. And just to reframe that for yourself is very important. And of the women that I interviewed, there were 8 different things that they told me, 8 different tools that they use to help them reflect, reframe, and reset. Would you like me to go through those?
Yeah, I'd love to hear them.
Sure. So the first one that they talked about is to write a unique value proposition. Now, a value proposition is one of those terms that we've learned from our corporate careers that has to do with how a company is selling itself, what is its competitive edge. So when you sit down and you actually think about yourself, and you may have been one of the people that contributed to the company's value proposition, but it's a whole different ballgame when you have to do it for yourself. The fact that you even think about it is more important than completing the value statement. The fact that you believe, as you said earlier, Maria, that you have unique value and we all have unique value is the first step in having your mind think on a positive spectrum of movement forward. The second thing is a lot of women collect inspiration. Now, this inspiration wasn't necessarily related to their positions or to a certain topic. It all different kinds of inspiration, inspirational quotes that appeal to them, something that you might talk about on your podcast that they might hear and they would just write down that phrase. And the point of doing this exercise is just to think differently.
Yeah.
All of us grow up, evolve, mature in a silo of lived and worked experience. And when you are transitioning and no longer part of the 9 to 5 or 10 to 8 churn that you must do, you really do have the time to look around and encourage yourself to think differently. And that's what collecting inspiration does. Journaling, this is different from collecting inspiration because this is when you have an opportunity to reflect on your own character strengths. And I don't mean to journal about what your accomplishments were related to the job when you were in someone else's journey, your boss's journey, your corporate journey, but your own journey. What do you feel is your character strengths? And these could be things that you just take for granted. Let's say that you're very good at making people laugh, or you're the one that always organizes the dinner parties because you have a touch, or you're the one that is, I love this new term, practices aggressive friendship. You always reach out and make sure that people are connected. These are real strengths and real skills, all of which are usable in whatever you do going forward. Create a vision board. Now, we've been told that people who write down their goals are 80% more likely to achieve them than people who don't write their goals. I honestly don't know if that's true. It sounds good, but there are some people that they're just not verbal. That doesn't inspire them. And the whole point of these exercises and these tools is to inspire yourself, to feel great about yourself and how you're looking ahead. And there was a woman that I interviewed for my book, and she was in a terrible situation where she had worked for a company with the founder. The founder had been replaced by a CEO because the founder knew they needed new corporate rigor. And she was the bridge between the old and the new. So many of the employees who were used to the old culture came to her, and she tried to save them until she realized that she herself was drowning. So she made a vision board on her computer, and she put what she would like to do, where she would like to live, what kinds of people that she would like to be interacting with. And she put it in a silver frame, and it came true. And we can talk a lot, I'm sure, about manifesting what you want, but it did come true. But the interesting thing is that she keeps that vision board on her desk to remind herself of how she was resilient and what she did and how she dreamed, let's say, dreamed forward for where she wanted to be. Produce a you video. I will say, in candor, this is my daughter's tool. She's a millennial, and she, instead of writing things down, she produces a video on her phone of less than 12 seconds, and it tells her how she values herself. And if she's in a situation where she's feeling less than, she will just play that video. She might have her earbuds in like I have now. No one will know, but it really picks her up and brightens her day. Create a playlist. Music has always been important to me. It's always a place where I go to be inspired. And when we were younger, we would go, quote, to our rooms and listen to music that would sort of reflect our moods. So I actually made a playlist for every phase of the journey that I describe in my book, and anyone can find it on Spotify. It's called the Involuntary Exit playlist, and it goes from those 4 stages that I talked about in the beginning: shock and numbness to the resolution and reorganization. And I will say that I'm about to make a playlist for 2022, but that's a fun thing to do. And finally, something that I alluded to before, excuse me, enlist an advisory board. No one person has all the answers. And we all know, for example, who to go to. If we do not want to do something, we know exactly who's going to talk us out of it. But if we have a real question, we should pose this to different folks. I learned a term yesterday that I really like called cognitive diversity. And what it really means is getting that difference of perspective, then again, stepping back, reflecting, reframing, and resetting for what works best for you.
Well,
Excuse me.
I couldn't interrupt you because you were on such a wonderful roll with those tools and techniques that can help us get through, quite honestly, any transition. Many of them I recommend to my clients as well. Surrounding yourself with, you call them an advisory board. I teach that they are your personal board of directors, right?
Lovely.
And they are crucial to surrounding ourselves with all kinds of great perspectives that can help us.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they're positive ones. But the writing, the music, I love your daughter's idea of just recording a video or even an audio for yourself that will just lift your spirit. And it's with an affirmation or two. It doesn't take long to record.
Yeah.
12 seconds. It doesn't take long to hear a message that will uplift you. I love all of those techniques that
Thank
they
you.
are, and they're all sprinkled throughout your book. So this is
Yeah.
it's a great resource, your book, for people who are going through transition, really of any kind. But we talk about being fired, the
Mm.
involuntary exit, being fired, being laid off. And sometimes we fire ourselves or be faux-fired, as I know you like to call it, right?
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. All right. So, this journey can be tricky. And
Mm-hmm.
there are some emotional triggers that can happen along this journey for people. And it might be for example, in a job interview, a trigger might be when the hiring manager asks, "So why did you leave your last position? Tell me what happened." And that could be a trigger. What are some of the others that you've come across?
Oh, there are plenty, but related to that would be the reference check. So, and I was speaking with an executive recruiter about this, and I said to her, well, what if you don't want to give your immediate supervisor as your reference because they were the one who let you go?
Hmm.
How do you handle that? And her response was that it's a matter of policy that they always check. They always need a supervisor. Maybe it's not the immediate supervisor or the past supervisor, but they do need to check with the supervisor. And this is an emotional trigger depending where you are in your journey. If you go out too soon and someone asks you that question and you're still filled with panic, what you had mentioned, or rage or shame, the answer you're going to give is going to come across as if you're hiding something or you're still angry about something. And for all of these types of emotional triggers, what this recruiter recommended is you really have to make sure you're beyond that phase so that whatever you say, it comes across as positive
Mm-hmm.
and confident
Mm-hmm.
and interested in the job at hand.
Right.
Now, her recommendation for answering that question was, well, you can do a few things. You can say, my supervisor and I did not see eye to eye, and you may hear that, but we had a good run at the organization. You can also call your supervisor and tell them that there will be a reference check, and you'll probably be surprised how forthcoming they are. But for all of these emotional triggers, whether it's the interview, what happened, the reference check, filling out an employment application, the important thing is to be honest and to tell the truth. I don't know about you, Maria, but I am very bad at not telling the truth. I kind of like I trip over my own words. So
Yeah,
just be
absolutely.
honest.
Yeah. 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 And it's always the best policy, as we were taught when we were young, right?
Yes.
But I think what you're talking about here is knowing, just know that there will be some things that could trigger you. How maybe prepare for that. Figure out what those triggers might be for you, where you have kind of the thin skin around
Exactly.
what subjects, and just prepare yourself. Prepare by practicing how you would respond. And these
Mm,
are the kinds of things that I do with my clients when we get to that part of the program is, let's do some mock interviewing. What are some of the
excellent.
toughest questions for you to answer? And let's practice your response to that. So yeah, those are, yeah.
I see a question about references where companies are only allowed to provide the dates of employment. That is actually true. However, as most of us know, we work in industries at certain levels where people do give, as they call, off book references, or it's a tight community, and you need to prepare for that. That
Yeah.
somebody may reach out to somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody,
Yeah.
and just prepare, as you said, prepare for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the key for so much of this, right?
Yes.
So you were probably unprepared if you got fired, or as I got laid off and it came out of the blue. And you are unprepared for that. But with using some of the techniques that you've already recommended, you can smooth your way. I like to say you can do it with more ease and grace when you
Mhm.
use some of these techniques to help you center on what it is that's really going on, who you are, what you value most about who you are, and what you bring in value to others, and step into that with confidence, and then you can position yourself for whatever comes next.
So important. Very, very good words. Good words, Maria.
All right, I have a final question before we get to our tip segment. You've given us so many already. But finally, I want to ask about the word you use that I use. It's in my company name, thrive. It is power packed, and I would love to hear how you define thriving.
Well, I have to say that it's a question that I do ask others because I also love that word. And so, how I define it, I've sort of taken that from my clinical social worker consultant because I loved her definition. So she said, thriving is being at peace and available to be present in life as it happens. So that means not inhabiting past stories or worried about the future. It's all about being at peace and available in the present. And I really liked that
I love
definition.
that. I love that. It just conjures an image of quiet, calm,
Yeah.
feeling centered, feeling grounded, and being at peace with where you are today, and focusing on, yeah, that's beautiful. Not worried about the past,
Mm-hmm.
not expecting something in the future, so your mind is not here. What can you do here now? I love that. That's really,
Mm-hmm.
and be at peace. Okay.
Yes.
We have one last thing we need to do, because our loyal viewers tell us that this is their favorite part of the show. So, for those who are new to the show, we always end with practical tips and strategies shared by my guest. And it's why I call the show Tips for the Transition. So, Robin, your book is filled with call outs that you call best advice. Can you share some of those with us?
I'd love to. Thank you. So I'll start from the metaphorical and to the to something that's very specific. So during transition, sometimes I tell people, imagine you filed Chapter 11 on your life and you need to emerge as a new entity. My second tip, and this is applicable to people that really want to move away from the pain and towards the pleasure. My second tip is don't confuse moving quickly with moving forward.
Ooh, ooh, I love that. I love that. Don't confuse moving quickly, which people may feel the need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may
Mm-hmm.
feel like, oh, I got to get this next. I got to get situated again.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
love that.
Yeah. Do we have time for two more?
Yeah, I want to go back to your first one for a second.
Okay.
I've never heard this one, but what a great, for those who are in corporate, um, they'll truly understand this. Our entrepreneurial folks who maybe have
Mm.
not been in corporate may not so much, but think of, so tell me what that metaphor was again. Think of it as though
Imagine you filed Chapter 11 on your life,
you're
which is sort of a
11.
bankruptcy filing, and
Yeah.
you need to emerge as a new entity.
So that what a great kind of big picture
Yes.
idea
Yes.
this is. So if you have to emerge as a new entity, how do you reinvent yourself?
Exactly. How do you reset yourself? It's what we've been
Yes.
talking about. How do you change your mindset from where you were to where you are now and where you could be? Yes.
And where you want to go from here. Yeah.
Correct. And it puts it in those stark terms of what does happen in
Yeah.
business.
So what happens in a situation like that is they keep the good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in an organization, right, when they are restructuring or resetting, right,
Yes.
they keep all that's good and they release the stuff that does not serve you any longer.
Exactly. Exactly.
What a
Well
great
explained.
metaphor. I
Yes.
love that. That's wonderful.
Yes.
I'm probably going to steal that one from you. Okay, what have you got next?
I have embrace uncertainty not as a threat, but as a necessity.
What was the last word? Not as a threat, but
As a necessity.
a necessity. Okay, repeat
Bec-
that one.
Embrace uncertainty not as a threat, but as a necessity.
Embrace adversity as a necessity. Yeah. Love
Uncertainty,
that.
yes, because we need fear usually stops us in
Yeah.
our tracks. It keeps us in places we don't want to be.
Stuck.
Correct, stuck. What you just said in the beginning,
Yeah.
and it's fear of the unknown. It's
Yeah.
fear of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But we need to embrace that really as an opportunity to explore, as a
Right.
necessity to grow and to evolve.
Yeah. It takes getting uncomfortable, getting
Yes,
comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
exactly.
Sitting out, edging out of our comfort zone. Yeah. Like that one. Go ahead. Go ahead. Next one.
My next one, my last one, which I've seen happen again and again, trust that the right people will enter your life when you need them.
Oh, there is such comfort in that, isn't there? Yeah,
There is.
if we could just relax enough, and a situation like this, being involuntarily exited.
Mm-hmm.
I call it being divorced. I was divorced by
Yes.
my company. Um, And it feels like that. Been through those too. It did feel a lot like that. But trusting that if you can relax and open yourself up to the possibilities and trust that the right things will happen for you and the right
That's right.
people will come into your life to help you, if you're open to that and not closed off, it's a really great tip to leave
That
us with.
that's exactly right. And for hard driving corporate women, it may sound a little woo woo, but
No,
when they're ready and they
yeah,
open themselves up, which means they might take a call from Maria, whereas before they might not have taken a call, or
yeah,
they might explore something, or they might find themselves at an event that they never thought they'd be at, and they meet somebody who then tells them about an opportunity. I have just seen it and heard it happening over and
yeah,
over again.
yeah,
And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I think it is comforting. We've talked about the comfort zone to know, as you put it, if you open up, the right people will come into your life when you need them.
yeah, yeah. It's one of it really is a law of life. It truly is.
Mm.
And I don't call it woo woo, but it might be a little woo.
It's half of woo
But
woo.
it's
Right.
true. It's true, and it will serve everyone well if they can just relax a little bit and allow, be present. So just take so many of your tips from today, and use the ones that resonate with you, that make you feel good, that make you want to reflect and kind of figure out who you are now that something significant has happened. And then open yourself up to the idea that, there are lots of possibilities going forward. And they
Absolutely.
start today, not by retelling the same old story and staying in the negative energy of that, but reframing that story, as you said, and then focusing on where you are today, because this is where you start from to move
Hmm.
forward.
I love that synopsis, Maria. That is right. Don't tell the same old negative
Mhm.
story. Start
Mhm.
today.
Yeah.
Wonderful advice.
Robin, thank you so much. These are your tips, your time today. They were so helpful. I think this is a jam-packed episode it's going to help so many people.
I hope
So
so.
I know that our viewers are going to want to get in touch with you and hear more about your book and learn more about the work you do. So, what is the very best way for them to do that?
They can go to my website, which is theprofessionalguide.com. That's TheProfessionalGuide, one word, .com. Theprofessionalguide.com.
That is perfect. Thank you. Thank you so, so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Maria. This has been a delight.
Thank
Just a delight.
My pleasure. So, so glad that we met.
I
All
am as well.
right. For those of you who are watching and listening, I appreciate that you're a part of our community. And I hope you enjoyed this episode with Robin. And if so, please leave a comment, leave a review. If there's a star rating where you're listening or watching, just rank us for how this resonated with you. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for professional women who feel stuck in their careers. So if something in this episode resonated with you and you'd like to get a fresh perspective, reach out. Let's chat. And you'll find all the links you need to learn more about Robin and me in the show notes below. I invite you to continue this conversation in my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap. So you can find that link below as well. So let's meet again here next Wednesday at the same time, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.